Hello friends, and welcome back to the Blush Studio. I'm going to take you behind the scenes again today while I create the painting for my October desktop calendar. First, kind of do a loose sketch just to figure out placement, and then as you can see here, I'm doing a more detailed sketch. For looser style watercolor, I don't get this detailed for my sketches, but because this is going to be more detailed, I really want to make sure that all of the elements that I want to include are sketched out and planned ahead for me. Whether you're doing a looser style or a more realistic style like this, I do really think that drawing is the foundation, and if you want to improve your painting skills, I really recommend working on your drawing skills. Now, no, your eyes did not play tricks on you. I did not record the beginning painting of this section, but you can see that I already laid down kind of a basic wash for each of the flowers, and then I just went in bold with those little flowers because I just really want those to be deep and just really pack a big punch. But for the larger flowers, you can see that I went in with the first wash and just kind of laid down the foundation for like what's going to be darker, what's going to be lighter. And now I'm going in with what's called a second pass. And that just means that I'm adding the next layer of shadows and of depth in order to create the space, the visual space that I want. So you can already see that the center of this rose that I'm working on is more defined than it was before. And I'm just going to keep going in for each of the petals, add the shadows, bring some of those petals forward so that it's like they're actually coming towards you, and create that depth. So you're going to see me go back and forth a couple of times with each of these flowers, just continuing to define the space and create that depth. So going in with the first base shadows and then adding darker shadows in there, just to continue to define the area. Here I go with the second pass and just really helping those shadows to pop. I'll keep doing this as the painting dries and as I continue to see things that I didn't notice beforehand. Watercolor does require a lot of patience, especially when you're working in a more detailed style like this, or if you're working with looser watercolor flowers, you can usually get a painting done pretty quickly. But that is a little harder because you need to be more intuitive. This, you're just following kind of the natural shadows that are in the flower itself. So now I'm working on the poppy. I'm just continuing to define that space. I want the center to be nice and dark, and I really want that petal that is in the foreground and it being foreshortened to really pop. So I'm deepening the shadows around it, adding some texture on these petals. It's one of the reasons I picked the poppies because I just loved the texture on the actual petals. And then doing the same thing with these little rosebuds. So while I keep adding shadows and just continuing to create depth in this painting, I am going to talk to you a little bit about kind of the color palette I decided to work with. Because this is for fall specifically, I really wanted to have like a moodier color palette. I tend to be a little bit brighter, really work with pastels a lot, but for this one, I wanted it to be fall. In Michigan, where I am from and currently living, we are in the peak of fall right now. The colors on the leaves are absolutely gorgeous, and the air is crisp and cool, and the nights are getting really long. So I decided to start with the mauve color that's in the large rose on the right hand side, and I just made a bunch of that color. And then I used that color to create the rusty color that the poppy is, that's now at the top, as well as I use that as the base for my little rosebuds that I'm painting right now. And just using that same base for each of those colors, they're analogous, so it didn't create brown, but it did help to create some unity throughout this piece. And you'll see I'll kind of add it in different ways throughout the painting. And it just helps to bring the whole piece together as well as kind of add that moodiness. So none of the colors are very saturated. It's not very bright. The color that I started with, the mauve color, wasn't very saturated or bright. And so that helped to set the tone for the colors that followed. Now this poppy was a lot of fun. I really loved the texture like I mentioned earlier, so I really wanted to help to capture that with this painting. So I went in a couple times with a smaller brush and just really added some deep colors in there before blending out these kind of stripes to add that texture. And then I felt like that color was just a little too desaturated, so I went in and added a brighter yellow wash to help kind of give that color some life and a little pop. And I'm adding a similar color. I'm taking that rust color and I'm adding it to just some little details of the that large rose that I'm working on, obviously. And just to kind of help to unify the piece, I wanted to bring the warmer colors that I was adding on the left side and bring it in a little bit on the right side as well. Now for the greenery, I'm not sure what kind of flower this is, but I just loved they were just, I don't know, they just have so much character. They're so weird. There's a little wiry, a little bit leggy, kind of like myself. So maybe that was why I felt a connection to them. They're string bean kind of. But I just love how they reach out and they just stretch and add a lot of movement to this piece. It's actually the reason I decided not to use this piece in my 2019 calendar, which if you're interested in checking that out, it has 12 different watercolor florals in this style. But it's one of the reasons I decided not to use it in that piece, but it's actually one of the reasons I liked it. So I did end up keeping it for the October calendar, desktop calendar for this year. So now with this greenery, which you can see that there's quite a bit more of for this piece, I again started with that mauvey color. So this is a very olivey, very desaturated green with a lot of warmth in it. Again, I wanted this to be moody and very reminiscent of fall, and so I wanted everything to have that warmth. But then for some variety, I kept the rose petals, the rose leaves, much more traditional. And so they're a little bit more cool toned, a little more blue in there, but still a pretty warm green overall. So if you were to compare this green that I'm using right now on a scale of like all the greens, it would still be on the warm side, but it's definitely cooler than some of the vines I did originally. Going back in with another pass to kind of deepen those up, add some depth. I like to do this with all my paintings where I'll go back in and I'll add a couple really light leaves and just keep those really delicate. I really like the way that that adds depth and makes it look like there are some leaves just in the background. This tends to be my finishing step. And here it is, the 2018 October desktop calendar, all scanned and edited. If you're interested in receiving this calendar or a similar design for a different month, I'll leave a link down below where you can sign up. It's totally free. I just send it out to my subscribers each month. It's a great way for me to continue to grow and experiment as an artist. But yeah, that's totally free and I would love to send it to you. Well, thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, please comment, like, and subscribe down below. I post a new video similar to this one on the first Friday of every month.